I'm here with Matt Coyle, one of my favorite mystery writers. My name is Jefferson Parker, and I'm honored to get to introduce Matt to you a little bit and introduce his new book, Blind Vigil. Matt, for those of our listeners who don't know you, give us a bio. Who are we talking to here?
Love to. Hey, first of all, thanks, Jeff, for doing this. I'm a big fan, and you've also been very helpful to me in a lot of ways. This is Blind Vigil is my 7th book. Been writing it took me 10 years to get the first one published, Yesterday's Echo. Before that, well, even during that, I was in the restaurant business for a while. I was in the golf business. I was in the sports collectible business, memorabilia, the collectible business. But I always knew I wanted to write. I think like you, I read Raymond Chandler, Ross McDonald when I was a kid. All those years, I thought, well, this is really what I wanted to do. And then I was too lazy to do it. So I had to go from job to job. And then when I finally writing the first draft of Yesterday's Echo, when I was unemployed after helping put the 4th golf company I worked for out of business in 10 years, I said, I'm taking the time. I'm going to write a book. I didn't know anything about the business. And so I'd written the first draft, which I thought was a book. And I thought, well, that'll be it. I'll never have to get a day job again. I'll get an agent, and my life has changed forever. Of course, I'd written the first draft, and it took me 10 years and about 5 or 6 more drafts to actually get published. But so I didn't get published until I was like 52 or 53.
Okay.
So a lot of wasted time.
Well, yeah. Are you a California boy? You live there now, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
I born in Orange County, Santa Ana, and I lived in San Diego since I was a kid. I went all the way up to Santa Barbara for college, and then
Okay. Yeah, when I left Orange County for college, I went to San Diego, and I felt like Magellan. It was 60 miles away.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, Matt. Okay, well, we know a little bit about you now, and this is a tough question, but I'm gonna let you just introduce the book. Tell us a little bit about the book in your words.
Okay, great. Yeah, as I said, Blind Vigil is the 7th of the Rick Cahill crime series. Rick is a former cop whose wife was murdered when he was working for the Santa Barbara Police Department. He was arrested for the crime, released, but never exonerated. Never tried, never exonerated. So he ended up going back to his hometown of San Diego after he got kicked off the force, and worked in a restaurant for a while, surprisingly, and ended up as a private investigator. And so this is 6 or 7 years later, many cases. And the last, as I mentioned earlier, his wife was murdered. That was a mystery that it kind of propelled him to try to find truth on all the cases he worked, and also tried to redeem himself because he felt guilty, whether he killed his wife or not. You have to read Yesterday's Echo to find out. He felt guilty about her death. And so every case he took where there was an emotional component, he was trying to redeem himself. And so finally, in the last book, Lost Tomorrows, he finds that he goes back to Santa Barbara, learns the truth about what happened to his wife, and ends up getting injured, I'll just say, and goes blind. And so this one, Blind Vigil, starts 9 months later. He's sightless, he's vision impaired. He's at home. He has one good thing that happened to him when he got blind is he got a girlfriend, and he hasn't been in a relationship for a while, a woman he really cares about. And so she's going between Santa Barbara and San Diego. So a lot of the times he's there alone in San Diego with his dog, his ever faithful dog, Midnight. And he's trying to figure out what he's going to do. He was a private investigator, and he was ready to quit that before he lost his eyesight anyway, because of all the damage it had done to him physically and emotionally. Without this manic quest he's had for the truth, there's a lot of shrapnel that comes with it. So he's trying to figure out what he's going to do. And his sometime partner his named Moira McFarland, asked him to just go with him to this one interview of a guy named Turk Muldoon, who Rick used to work for, who worked in the restaurant business. All these years ago, they were best friends. Something happened in their friendship. Kind of broke, but Rick still had used his restaurant to interview clients. He doesn't have an office. Turk would let him bring people by. So he still had that relationship. So Turk thinks that he thinks possibly his girlfriend, a woman he's actually fallen in love with, which for him is very rare, might be stepping out on him. So Moira's had a little bit of a history with those kind of cases where she's very leery. Doesn't really want to take the case, but she figures, I'll take Rick. And even though he can't see, he can hear. He knows Turk. I'll be there for the interview and see if he can figure anything out. Is this guy, what's he capable of?
Mm-hmm.
So Rick goes to the interview and decides to help Moira, thinks everything's fine. And of course, bad things ensue. And he's in the middle of a case where someone has died. And he's trying to find his way through life, blind and as a private investigator without eyesight.
Yeah. You know, one of the many things that I liked about this book was the way you dealt with Rick Cahill's near total blindness at the beginning. That was very moving and very, very well done. Talk a little bit about how you did that. I'm sure you interviewed some people. I saw some thanks in the credits. You must have really had to dig down and get real with the darkness. How did you do it?
Thanks. Yeah, I did. I interviewed two women actually who had lost their sight as adults. One was only 19, really interesting person I dedicated the book to. She lost her eyesight when she was 19. Her whole life was in front of her, and it was a horrible accident, and she was also in a coma for a while. And then another woman who lost her eyesight when she was in her 40s, I believe. So I just want to have them tell me, what that was like, the transition, and then of course I bought it's funny, you try to find the proper term for this, but there's many. I bought a we'll call it a white cane, seeing eye cane. It's not really called that, but and I went outside with it at night because I didn't want to see me walking around with it when I wasn't vision impaired. And I did some of that. I walked around my house with my eyes closed, and so I did some of that, and from that, the whole thing of counting steps, which you get
there's a lot of that in the book, and I really liked that. I thought it was really cool. Yeah.
Well, I sort of pulled that out of my own imagination, and then when I ended up later talking to one of the women, I asked her if that's something she'd done, and she said, yeah.
Oh,
and I do think it just kind of, especially when you're in your own house, I think it kind of falls to the background a bit. But I wanted to have it early so people could understand. I think you could probably in your own house, if you walked around with your eyes closed right now, you could probably get a decent sense for where you are. Yeah. But the one thing I wanted to do, one thing I didn't want the book to be, because I'm doing this character, people who've read along Rick all the years, he's a damaged guy, and he makes some bad decisions. Basically, his heart's in the right place, but he's sometimes he doesn't deal with adversarial situations that well. And I wanted him, or bad situations, I didn't want this to be like, this is how vision impaired people deal with things. Because Rick probably doesn't deal with them as well as a lot of people who are vision impaired do. So I wanted to make sure that that was understood. So he's got to deal with his own, plus, this book, his life has completely changed. Aside from going blind, he's not doing what he used to do, which was kind of a passion for him, but also dangerous. And he's in a relationship where he's no longer just responsible for himself. He has to think about other people when he takes action. So I threw, the vision impairment in there as an extra obstacle. And I also, I thought about, I don't know if I'm going on, but when I started writing this book, I thought, you're an idiot. This is really hard to write.
Yeah.
I can't write scenes where I can't see. It's very difficult. And I knew I could have just, in between books, well, his vision came back. I could have done that because I left it open with the injury as such that if some swelling went down, his vision could come back. Yeah. And I thought, well, that would just lessen the impact of what really happened in the last book.
Yeah, it's kind of sidestepping the whole problem.
Right. Yeah. But believe me, for months, I wish I had done that.
Yeah.
But eventually, and I'm glad I didn't. Eventually, it worked out.
Well, you did. You did a good job. I've been flirting with writing a blind protagonist for 30 years.
Wow.
And I've never once been able to screw up the courage to even make a phone call in that direction. I felt defeated by the idea, and you pulled it off. You did a good job. I mean, the book is about darkness, no pun intended, of many kinds.
Right.
And Rick's Vigil is one of them. It's a raw book. It's a painful book. There's a lot of pain in the book. It's big themes, you know. In baseball terms, you're swinging for the fence, and I admire that. No trifling passages here. Um, um, I've read most of your books, and you seem to embrace that kind of dark, pained side of life pretty pretty nimbly. How do you do it? You just imagine yourself, you imagine your way in, or do you have you had a lot of dark, raw things in your life, in your world?
Yeah, right with your no, my life's been pretty easy, I'll be honest with you. And I mentioned earlier about all the time I'd wasted not writing, but I think that what happens as you get older, because I didn't have an exciting life. You know, I was in sales, I worked in a restaurant. You know, I've gotten divorced, there's some pain there, but because I didn't have any, I wasn't a cop, I wasn't a lawyer, I haven't been any of those other haven't had any of these careers, that I think when I started writing, although I really wish I would have started earlier, it took that amount of time to get life's, you know, real life experience and in pain and joy. But you know, as you get older, you lose people in your life, you lose family members, and that's real emotion, real pain that even if you haven't lived an exciting life, you can put that emotion into the writing, into a scene where, say, someone is shot and killed that Rick cares about. You can take the real emotion, even though you know, the action's different.
Yeah, your emotions ring true in the book. Rick's emotions ring true, and good job. Take a detour here. Walk us through the work day. When and where do you sit down and actually get to work?
Right. For six books, I wrote the first 6 books while I had a day job. Although the first one, number 6 came out when I quit my day job, but I wrote all 6, as you know how it works, while I had a day job. So ironically, although the time was tight, I had a real schedule, because I had to have a real schedule. I had to write at a certain time at the end of the day after I'd taken care of my day job, even though I worked from home. And when I stopped working the day job, I had all this extra free time that I would put into marketing and things that really took me a while to find the groove. But long story short, I start working, I start writing in the morning, you know, whenever, perhaps 8 o'clock or so, and I write for 2 or 3 hours, 3 hours generally. I'll take a long lunch and just kind of decompress. And then I'll come back, write for a couple hours, and I'll walk my dog later in the day, and then write in the evening. So it's not all one shot for me. I mean, I can do whatever I have to do, but I found, ironically, because you figure, like, maybe you're not getting into a groove, that seems to work for me okay. But it, you know, it changes.
Sounds like a good pattern. I think we're down to less than a minute.
Yeah.
What about, give us your free advice for writers?
Yeah. I'd say it's a pretty stupid and easy one, write. But, you know, leading up to that, I would take classes at night, like I did. I actually did. That's one thing I did. Read, of course. That's the number one. And you've probably read all of your life if you want to be a writer. And if you didn't, I can't understand why you would want to be a writer. Read your genre, read everything. But, you know, write. You got to write. You got to find a schedule. And if you can't have a schedule, you got to write. But you also need, I'm a big proponent of writers groups. I'm still in one. I'm in a new one after many years. But if you can't have a writers group, you have to find somebody who doesn't love you, but is fairly familiar with your genre to be able to read your work. They have to be able to critique you. I really think that helps. I think when you start, you figure, you know, I thought, this is my story. I don't need any outside influences. How could, you know, I have my story to tell. Then, you know, after 7 revisions, I realized, well, maybe I need some help.
Yeah, good advice. Good advice. Writing is long. Right. And hopefully, luckily, if you're lucky, life is long. Thanks for talking with us.
Right.